In spiritual communities, we correlate these shifts with the spiritual awakening process. We know the solar activity brings energetic upgrades that trigger system updates, but at a core level, we know it isn't because of the sun. Have you ever personally taken the time to wonder about the connection between profound experiences and energetic upgrades powerful enough to be DNA restructuring? That's what I really want to get to. The biggest thing these solar storms are known for is producing massive solar flares, and that is where both the damaging and notable effects come from, but without them, it probably wouldn't even make it to mainstream awareness. A solar flare is essentially a concentrated burst of radiation hitting the Earth. Though we are taught that radiation is bad, and yes, it's generally not something that you want to take a high level sauna of every day. It's not necessarily the type of radiation that is bad, but an overload of it, because we're delicately tuned machines. So any changes means equal time to adjust. And people don't realize that radiation is a part of this human experience, at least in your current earthly incarnation. But wherever you are, there is always going to be a level of background radiation, and you even give off a level of radiation. So just like energy, it is a part of life, but there are different types of radiation that come into Earth with these solar storms that have a much greater effect than what we are used to. And this is where the biological system has to take a little bit more time to readjust, and is what has made some recent solar activity so impactful on the human system, because it's been a type of radiation like a certain ultraviolet light that isn't stopped by objects or infrastructure. It doesn't slow down or is buffered by the things that it passes. So it steeps into the ground and objects around it, which is a whole other peril of cause and effect, spiritually and physically. It is important to know, as an ecosystem, the sun is basically like a big power generator, and it's getting a lot of attention right now with all the solar storms and seemingly destructive eruptions that have gained so much media attention. But as with anything, it's only part of the picture. And if the media is saying, look here, then it's always a good idea to find out what's behind the smokescreen, so to speak. And remember that fear has and always will be tactic 101 for trying to suppress your naturally rising vibrations. Currently, we are in solar cycle 25, where the magnetic field of the sun is in its feminine wave and has been since around the end of December 2019. From then, it will continue for about 11 years until its poles flip again, and we then return to the masculine wave of this celestial being at a greater influence on our system. Historically, when these shifts happen, this then has a massive ripple effect to Earth, as we then have to adjust to the new energies coming in. So we've already had a few years now of its cycle, so you can look back and connect the dots, some of the things that happened around that time, and how this then led to us collectively being a lot more feeling focused and tuned into our intuitive nature. This feminine dominant wave also sees heightened spiritual possibilities that lead to an increase in awakenings, because generally it forces us to deal with feelings and evaluate our place in the bigger scheme of things. And knowing this, it's safe to say you can mark 2030 on your calendar as the next massive shift in the direction of things, and a surge in those masculine, dominant, action-based energies. and uprooting of accepted realities, which will also then see the next wave of awakenings. And it is strategically part of the plan that there is a very large percentage of us experiencing awakenings during this feminine wave to be the support system for that 2030 wave of the next Great Awakening. And this can all boil down to the simple statement that this vibrational shift is like a call to arms. It is guided action to tune in to your intuition, your spiritual gifts, and your soul mission, even without your conscious choosing. On a deeper level, we both know that you've already set that trajectory way before you got here. So it's a good idea to trust the process, or it could get really messy. And trust me on that one. Let's just say don't do a car loop and learn from videos like this so you can take the opportunity with both hands and ride the ascension wave with awe-inspiring pizzazz. So take a few moments to consider your own experiences, especially just prior to the start of 2020, and how they stood in contrast of what was to come. The start of this year in our current timeline represents the end of approximately 10 to 15 year or slightly more traumatic cycle for a lot of people. It was an intense period of growth with a lot of challenges and a time of significant change. Were you one of those people? Is there anything you would like to share with other people that are still going through that? Have the shifts, especially in the last 6 months, seen you unlocking interests and knowledge that you were not aware of? What has your experience been? I'd love to hear about it. If we take it back to a very common line of thought that everything on the outside is a reflection of what's happening within, or otherwise put, as above, so below, then we are reminded that what is happening externally is also going on in the microsystem on some level. All of these happenings do provide us with some very solid clues of what is happening internally. For example, just like the recent solar activity, which is driven by something else, but we'll get to that. When you have an instance of an explosive reaction of energy that has been forced through something, and we look at this in ways like I've recently spoken about, with energies being pulled through the planet, which was because of a particular planetary alignment at the time that corresponded with our magnetic field, and directed coronal mass ejections heightened around the first full moon. And this can have an effect on the human system, as it's also experiencing these energies being forcefully dragged through it. And you'll also notice that this corresponds with people having deep psychological breakthroughs when the inner stuff is also being forcefully dragged out. This leads to a clearing of these sorts of things that come into our conscious awareness that we had no idea a lot of the times that we had stored up, or we knew about it but hadn't as yet allowed ourselves to actually fully experience the trauma with those associated memories. Even though we may have thought so, we had safeguarded ourselves at the time from those experiences and instead stored them up until there came a time where we felt safe enough to be able to readdress them and honor them, feel them and process them so that we can release them. This energetic purging will facilitate those moments. That might not describe something you personally have experienced recently, but look in your circle and see if that explains a family member or loved one, especially, and things like this can happen in waves. So you might not experience this on each and every energetic wave that hits the earth from solar activities, but every now and then, as it triggers more shifts internally, something may come up. So it might not be as easy for you to right now, in this very second, tune into what your kidneys and liver are doing. But if you can understand what is happening in our solar system, and beyond that, if you're eager, and the greater ecosystem at least, that all of these biological systems are dependent on, then you have a better idea of what is happening within your body on physical, emotional, and energetic levels. And if you know there is going to be another solar storm or the next round of plasma waves hitting us, current moon phase, or planetary alignments, then you can pretty accurately anticipate similar happenings within yourself and the network around you on some level. All reliable indicators and all impactful enough. Also, why it's a good idea to look into things like astrology and numerology. So just to be clear, because I can already feel some skeptical minds starting to withdraw, this isn't confirmation bias or self-actualization, which are legitimate traps and things to look out for, especially as you make more progress on your spiritual journey and understand universal laws and alchemical teachings, so your manifestations start happening at lightning speed, and all of the external factors that I have just mentioned, like the planets and the stars, are just the roadmaps that have been given to us to understand the projected world around you and how it unlocks secrets of what is happening internally.